Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwandler and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of continuing our conversation with John Golden. He's the President and CEO of Huthwaite. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Gerhard. It's great to be here again.
Let's talk about sales strategy. How do you teach salespeople in this chaotic environment to pursue a coherent and effective strategy?
Well, I always bring it back to, there's a quote from, The Art of War, Sun Tzu, where he says that, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, but tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And I think that that's a really pertinent quote, because often you'll find that salespeople will approach an opportunity and they and their manager will either come up with a kind of a broad brush strategy and then they'll just go for it and they'll wonder why it takes so long to progress the sale, or else they'll just go straight to tactics and they've got lots and lots of tactics but never figure out the overall strategy and they wonder why they lose the deal.
Can you translate this into an example?
Yeah. So take for instance, if I'm trying to sell to you, and the first thing I need to do is, number one, is I need to establish who you are from a buyer profile perspective, right? Are you the focus of power, somebody who's actually able to make the decision? Are you the focus of receptivity, somebody who's amenable to what we offer? You think it's a good idea, you think it can do something for your organization, but you're not a decision maker, you're an influencer. Or you're somebody who can broker us into other conversations. Next I need to understand the decision criteria. How are the various people involved in this decision going to make that decision? What's important to them? Is it price? Is it, say, if it's a service, it could be a global reach, right? It's very important. But again, when you have different players involved in the process, global reach may be important to the ultimate decision maker, the focus of power, but maybe not so important to the line person who's going to actually benefit this. So I have to establish the overall decision criteria and then what is more important to different people. And it all comes down to actually building a map of the opportunity and ensuring that you have the tactics to make sure that you're adapting your strategy to each person in the process. And then also you'll have to look at if there's a competitor involved in it. So how do you stack up against the competitor in terms of the decision criteria?
So when you talk about sales strategy in the context of maybe smaller deals, is it just as important as the big $1 million deals?
Yeah, and absolutely. If I'm not clearly aligned with where you are in the buying cycle, then it doesn't matter whether it's a $50 transaction between you and I, or a $5 million or a $10 million transaction. I'm not going to get that sale because I'm misaligned.
John, here's where I see the difficulty. Salespeople are usually very action-focused.
Correct.
And a strategy requires reflection and time. Salespeople are ADD, and strategists are more deeper thinkers that are comfortable with making a larger time chunk available to think it through. So a lot of salespeople tend to act impulsively and then end up with no sale. So how do you teach salespeople to become more strategically focused?
Well, there's two ways. Number one, you need to give them the tools. So for instance, we work with them on call planning and being able to arrange and order their thinking and put the strategy together. We also have a platform. We use the Huthwaite Dealmaker platform, which again gathers all the information and actually produces that plan for them. But the other really key role is the sales manager, or the sales manager / sales coach, because it's really their job to take you as a salesperson and say, okay, time out. Let's look at this opportunity. Have you figured out the buyer roles here? Okay, let's talk through that. Have you figured out the decision criteria? Have you talked through, do you understand, what does person A versus person B, what are their decision criteria? Have you looked at the competition?
So there are really three steps that I see. One is getting the salesperson onto the better cognitive map, having them execute through sales training and simulations, and third, reinforce it with ongoing coaching.
Yeah, reinforce with ongoing coaching, and then, like in the case of our Deal Maker platform, have a technology that's embedded in their CRM that actually reinforces it on a daily basis, right at their work practice.
Thank you, John. We are going to continue our conversation tomorrow, where we talk about pipeline forecasting and accuracy.